cool. All right, celibacy. I want to talk about this because I think we we talk about it in different ways, but I think it's important to kind of see what the scriptures say, of course, about it, of course, but how do people apply it into today, and what it is, what is not, and how how we can just get some information about it. And I'm gonna give my perspective on things. And I found this picture. I thought this was hilarious. All right, First Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1. Now concerning things whereof you wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. So we know the people in Corinth, they wrote to Paul about this topic about marriage. And he's writing back. We don't know what he wrote. They wrote to him, but we know this letter. So they said something in regards to marriage or being with a woman. So Paul's saying it's good for a man not to touch a woman. Why is he saying that? Paul was an aesthetic. He was someone who abstained from having sex or to have any intimacy with a woman because he was so focused on building the churches. Because he saw the time was short and he only had a minute time, and he felt like a woman would be a distraction to his ministry, and that's why he was basically, kind of like, it'd be better that if y'all were like this. But he understood why someone want to be married, want to have children. He said that's understandable. He's allowed, but it's like, it's a lot of anxiety you're gonna have to deal with if you're gonna deal with a woman, and that's any man knows that, a woman is a beautiful, beautiful person, beautiful thing, but a woman can, come with some headaches too. So he's like, you got to be aware of that sometimes when you come into that relationship dynamic. You got to prepare yourself for that. And Paul was kind of, like, I'm trying to free you from that. But people have taken that out of context, like the Catholic Church. They think that it's mandatory for anybody who wants to be in the clergy to be celibate for forever, and that's not true. Never in the scripture. All the priests were married. All the priests had a wife, or if they chose one. And it's just the Catholic Church has misinterpreted a lot of Paul's teachings and they think that this is mandatory, and that's not true. So First Corinthians chapter 7, verse 2, nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. And Paul was very set on this one man, one woman dynamic in regards to his churches, because, like he said, the woman, I mean, like I said before, he really saw that women can be a distraction. And then if you have multiple wives, multiple family, children, you have to take accountability for all that. And if you're a pastor or elder, how are you able to manage that church when you got so much responsibility at home? So he's like, it'd be better just to have your own wife, your own husband, to avoid fornication or burn with lust, because especially in the Greek culture, a lot of lust and burning affection for each other was hot and heavy back in the day, especially in the churches. Verse 3, let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. The wife has not power of her own body, but the husband, and likewise also the husband has not power of his own body, but the wife. Defraud ye not one the other, except it be with consent for a time, that you may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. So he's saying, you know, if you marry, your husband, your wife, I mean you're a woman, your husband needs you physically as well as sexually, emotionally, in the same way as your husband, your wife needs you sexually and physically, emotionally as well. So don't abstain from each other. It's like y'all need each other, so y'all don't get tempted. And it's like even if y'all have to, take some time apart to fast, to prayer, or pray, you have to come together, because Satan will use sometimes that distance from each other to remind you of some loneliness or some envy. That spirit will come on you, and you may make some decisions that you will regret later. So it's like you always have to remember that y'all need each other. So don't hold off sex from each other. I thought I had something else. I guess not. Verse 6, but I speak this by permission, not a commandment. So Paul is giving his perspective or his opinion on it. Not he's saying it's not a commandment, it's just his perspective. And a lot of stuff that Paul says sometimes in his letters are his perspective, but he was an apostle. He has the spirit of the Most High, so he's speaking this out of a lot of wisdom that he has received. So a lot of his stuff was on point. That's why he was so authoritative when he spoke or when he wrote. Verse 7, For I would that all men were even as myself, but every man has his proper gift of God, one after this manner and another after that. So he said, I wish everybody could be just able to abstain like I am, but not everybody built like that. So he's like, I understand. Verse 8, I say therefore to the unmarried and the widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. So he's saying if a woman has never been married, or basically saying she's never been with a man, and a widow, her husband has died, it'd be better if she remain unmarried or they never get married at all so they can attend to the problems that the church has. But if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it's better to marry than to burn. So it's like if they can't, maintain that lifestyle, it's better to just get married and not deal with that lust that may come up. First Corinthians chapter 7, verse 10, and unto the married I command, yet not I, but the Lord, let not the wife depart from her husband. But and if she depart, let her remain unmarried or be reconciled to her husband, and let not the husband put away his wife. So again, he's reinforcing that scripture. I think in Matthew, I think it's Matthew 22, um, when Christ was like, the law of divorce. And he's like, Moses gave y'all that commandment out of the hardness of your heart, but the Most High really created y'all to be one flesh. So Paul is saying, don't separate from your wife or your husband. He's like, y'all need to stay apart. But he said, if y'all do happen, if life happens, if y'all depart, let her be unmarried. Don't reckon or don't try to get remarried to somebody else. But he said, if you want to get remarried back to your husband. Go back to your husband that you had before. And the same thing with the husband. Don't put away your wife. The husband may come into this knowledge, or it may come into the knowledge of Christ and wants to live right, and his wife may not want to. And he's like, don't put her away if she's willing to be with you. He's like, just stick with it. And I think he's gonna talk about right here. Yeah, verse 12. But to the rest speak I, not the Lord. If any brother hath a wife that believe not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away. And a woman which has an husband that believeth not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Else were your children unclean, and now are they holy. So he's like, if the wife is following the commandments and following Christ, and she wants to live right, and she's already married, and it's like, if the husband is dwell with you, he's not, you know, making it a big, making it a issue of contention every day. He's like, stay with your husband. It's like, you made this commitment, you should stay with him. The same vice versa with the husband. You want to live right, and the wife isn't making a big deal about you not eating pork, and you want to keep the Sabbath. It's like, that's fine, that's cool, that's good, that's even better. You're actually sanctifying your partner, and it's like, and you're actually keeping your children healthy or clean. You're making them holy. Verse 15, but if the unbelieving depart, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in these such cases, but God has called us to peace. So he's giving this as a sense of people may have anxiety, like, well, I didn't want a divorce, or my husband or my wife, she left me. So that mean I'm in sin? He's like, well, no, it's like, you didn't have any control over that. So it's like, Most High calls you to peace. If they want to leave, let them leave. It's not your fault that they left you. Verse 16, for what knowest thou, O wife, whether thou shalt save thy husband, or how knowest thou, O man, whether thou shalt save thy wife? But as God has disturbed or distributed to every man, as the Lord has called everyone, so let him walk. And so ordain I in all churches. So, he's saying, just do what, Most High calls you to do. Don't, don't concern yourself on things you can't control. I wanted to skip down to verse 25. Now concerning virgins, I have no commandment of the Lord, yet I give my judgment as one that has obtained mercy of the Lord to be faithful. Now I want to put this in this context because he's talking about women who have never been with a man. And he's going to basically talk about how he recommends that they kind of don't be married if they don't want to, if they don't feel like the necessary. And a lot of people in the modern day church, they make it seem like, this is the lifestyle for a lot of women who want to be in the church, and they feel like, I don't need a husband, I don't need to be married. Let me just say this. If it's your personal opinion, you don't want to have children, you don't want to be married, that's your business, that's fine. But in regards to this letter, this is not, Paul's not talking about women who have been with men before, who have had sexual experiences before, that you should just be unmarried. And I say that personally as well, because in my opinion, I don't think that it would be conducive for a woman who has had those experiences to deal with that type of um, emotional experience by herself. I really think that a woman who has been with men before needs a man long term. My personal opinion, because women who have had sex before, they deal with a certain type of anxiety that a woman who's never had sex before doesn't have to deal with that. If you understand, you understand. If you don't worry about it. But I think that it's important that we be honest about that, because I think a lot of churches, they keep women single in regards to they're kind of the surrogate husband in a way. And so I'm just putting that out there in regards to this passage. I think this is kind of misinterpreted in some churches, and I think this is important that we kind of put it in context. So verse 26, I suppose therefore that this is good for the present distress. I say that it is good for a man, so be it, so to be. Art thou bound unto a wife? Seek not to be loose. Art thou loose from a wife? Seek not a wife. But if thou marry, thou hast not sinned. And if a virgin marry, she has not sinned. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh, but I spare you. But this I say, brethren, the time is short. It remaineth that both they that have wives be as though they had none. So he's saying this again. He's like, if you want to get married, that's fine. But if you don't try. Don't. If the Most High put in your heart, it's like, you're not married. It's like, what? Don't try to find. Don't try to get married. He's like, what's? Because he's talking about the time is short. Paul is giving a lot of prophetic visions. He's see a lot of things that's happening in his time period, and he understands that marriage is not the priority in his time right now. So he's warning people that if you have a wife or you're in that relationship dynamic, he's like, you honestly got to live life like it's not even there. Not to say you be neglectful to your wife, of course you take care of her, but you have to understand that time is not as easy going as you think it should be. We're in a very pressing time period, and Paul saw what was around the corner, like the Romans taking over Jerusalem and destroying the temple and slaughtering a lot of his people later on in a few years. In verse 30, and they that weep as though they wept not, and they that rejoice as though they rejoice not, they that buy as though they possess not, and they that use this world as not abusing it. For the fashion of this world passed away, but I would have you without carefulness. When he says carefulness, without anxiety. He that is unmarried cares for the things that belong to the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he that is married cares for the things that are of the world, how he may please his wife. So again, he's a married man. He's not necessarily conflicted, but he has other obligations he has to take care of. He wants to do what the Lord is pleased, but he also got to take care of his wife. And so he's like you say, the wife can be a distraction from the things that you need to do from the Lord. Not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a responsibility thing. Just like if you have children, you're not as free as you once was when you were childless. So now you have more other responsibilities. You have accountability that you have to take care of. So it's like you don't have as much time as you did before when you're married. Verse 34, there is a difference also between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman cares for the things of the Lord, that she may be holy, both in body and in spirit. But she that is married cares for the things of the world, how she may please her husband. And this I speak for your own profit, not that I may cast a snare upon you, but for that which is comely, and that ye may attend upon the Lord without distraction. So again, saying that same thing over and over about the distraction that can come about in a relationship. Oh, but I'll put this in here in First Titus chapter 5, verse 14. He says this, I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. So again, Paul's not conflicting with his idea. He understands that people want to get married, and he's giving just his opinion on what is the most appropriate at the time. For Corinthians, it might not be for the best for them, but in regards to other churches, other people that he knows, it's probably better for these women to marry and bear children and got the highest house. And majority of women is probably better for that situation. But for women who don't have that desire, and some women they really don't have that desire, they have to know themselves to know that. That's their business. But he's speaking to different people. I put this in here so we won't put it like a generalization on everybody has to be this way, because I feel like this chapter is used a lot to justify why a lot of women are single, and that's a lot of that feminist doctrine that gets into the churches. And I think we have to be able to separate that. Verse 36, but if any man think that he has behaved himself uncommonly toward his virgin, if she pass the flower of her age, and needs so require, let him do what he will, he sinneth not, let them marry. Nevertheless, he that standeth steadfast in his heart, having no necessity, but has power over his own will, and has so decreed in his heart that he will keep his virgin, doeth well. So then he that gives her in marriage doeth well, but he that gives her not in marriage doeth better. So again, these women who were engaged to be married, but the man hasn't officially made it yet. He's like, you don't necessarily have to do it if you don't want to, because you still got some other stuff you want to take care of. But he's like, if you want to do it, that's good. But if you don't, it's even better. So that's Paul's perspective on it. Oh, I put the same verse in there twice. My bad. Verse 39, the wife is bound by the law as long as her husband liveth, but if her husband be dead, she is at liberty to be married to whom she will, only in the Lord. But she is happier if she so abide after my judgment. And I think also that I have the Spirit of God. So Paul is saying that this is based off his judgment, his own perspective. But he has the Spirit of the Most High, so he's saying that very authoritatively. All right. Can I get through this? I only got like 4 more slides. All right.
Go ahead, Nate. Go ahead.
Okay, appreciate it. All right, this is Matthew chapter 19. I want to talk about this because it's going to tie into Revelation. It's going to talk about some spiritual stuff. Just wanted to lay this out real quick. Verse 1, and it came to pass that when Jesus or Yahushua had finished these sayings, he departed from Galilee and came into the coast of Judea beyond Jordan, and great multitudes followed him, and he healed them there. The Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him, saying unto him, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? And he answered and said unto them, have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? And said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh, or the two shall be one flesh. Wherefore they no more twain or no more two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man put asunder. Or what God has put together, let not man split apart. So verse 7, they said unto him, why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and to put her away? They're quoting Deuteronomy 24. And he says unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffer you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. And I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, shall marry another, committeth adultery, and whoso marries her, which is put also away, does commit adultery. So he's establishing the parameters of divorce. He's saying that you have to work it out with your significant other. You just can't put away your wife or divorce her for any reason. Like it has to be for a serious accusation, like fornication, like she's actually committed sex with or had sex with another man. Like that's the only time you can ever put away your wife. But a lot of these people, they were putting their wives for any reason. Like, oh, she ain't make me a meal today, I'm gonna divorce her. It's like, no, you're causing her to commit adultery. Like, you can't do that. And so verse 10, his disciples say unto them, if the case of the man be so with his wife, it is not good to marry. And he said unto them, all men cannot receive the same, save they to whom it is given. For there are some eunuchs which were or so born from their mother's womb. And when he says that, that's like a person who was born with male and female like reproductive organs, where they can't necessarily have children, or they're born a hermaphrodite, quote unquote hermaphrodite. They don't say that anymore. They say unisex. And there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men. Those are the people like in ancient days, they would have someone a man guard the like the harem, the king's harem, his concubines, and they would cut off the man's penis and his testicles because so he wouldn't be tempted to have sex with his concubines. So it's like these are the eunuchs that were made by men, and there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. And he that is able to receive it, let him receive it. So he's saying these are eunuchs who chose not to have any sexual intimacy or have any children, for the heaven's sake. But he's also speaking on a spiritual level. He's speaking on this on a physical level, but he's also speaking spiritually. And I wanted to put this in here because this ties into the Revelation 14, verse 1. And I look, and lo, a lamb stood on a Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven as the voice of many waters and as the voice of great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. And they sung as it were a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. And what is that song? That's the song, that's the message of Moses and the message of the Lamb of Christ. That's Revelation 15, verse 3. That's the message. They spoke the same song. Moses and Christ spoke the same song because they spoke the same message. They gave the same message of the gospel. Um, and then so that's the song that the 144,000 have. They know this message. They're not corrupted by any other message, the gospel. Verse 4, these are they which are not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile or no lie, for they are without fault before the throne of God. So these are the people who are not going to be swayed by these different doctrines or these different pagan ideals. They're going to follow the scriptures and they're going to follow the Lamb regardless. And that's why I want to put this in here because this is when they talk about the virgin, because the church is a virgin. Because first, Second Corinthians chapter 11, verse 2, for I am jealous over you with godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Christ. And that's the same virgin that Paul was speaking about in First Corinthians chapter 7. Yeah, chapter 7. So it's the same thing. These people, they're virgin. It's the same virgin in Revelation 14. So it's like the church is a virgin. And that's why it's like it's spiritually as well. It's not just about physically. It's like these people are going to be uh, chastened and they're going to be called out of the world and they're going to be going to a series of temptation. And uh, if they uh, make it through, or when they make it through, because the scriptures say they will be seen as the first fruits. So I just wanted to put that in there. That kind of ties into the celibacy topic. But I think that's all I got.